It started like a regular broadcast. The lights, the cameras, the smiling face everyone knew. Joni Lamb sat confidently on the Daystar stage like she always did. But something was different this time. Her voice didn't sound the same. Her eyes looked like they were hiding something big. And then, she said it. The room went silent. At first, people thought they misunderstood her. But no, they heard her right. And within seconds, phones were buzzing. Messages flooded in. Clips of the broadcast went viral in minutes. People were shocked, confused, and angry. What did she just say? 4 years, Joni had built a reputation as the strong, graceful leader behind one of the biggest Christian networks in the world. She spoke about faith, family, and truth. But now, her own words had thrown everything into question. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was planned. And whatever Joni thought she was revealing, the world wasn't ready for it. People who had followed her for decades sat frozen. Some were crying. Others were furious. Some refused to believe it. But they all had the same question. Why now? Why on live TV? And what does it mean for the future of Daystar? Joni's voice didn't shake. She didn't cry. She looked straight into the camera and spoke like someone with nothing left to lose. That moment felt like a bomb going off in slow motion. It wasn't just about what she said. It was about what she didn't say. The expressions on the faces of the crew in the background told a different story. Nervous eyes. Fidgeting hands. The kind of silence that comes when something sacred is falling apart. Viewers started to rewind the footage. Again and again. Trying to catch something they missed. Trying to make sense of it. Because Joni wasn't just any TV host. She was the face of trust for millions of Christians around the world. But after that broadcast, people weren't so sure anymore. What followed next felt like an avalanche. Comments flooded in. Emails. Calls. Church leaders started asking questions. Even Joni's most loyal supporters were quiet. People didn't want to believe it. But the more they watched, the more clear it became. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was real. And the weight of her words was already tearing things apart. Some fans said it felt like a betrayal. Others said it felt like the truth had finally come out. But either way, it hurt. And the pain was just getting started. What Joni said that day didn't just shake her fans. It cracked something deeper, something inside the heart of Daystar itself. The network that once stood as a beacon for hope and healing, now felt like a house full of secrets. In the days that followed the broadcast, something strange happened. Ministries that used to appear regularly started to go quiet. Churches that supported Daystar slowly pulled back. And fans, loyal, longtime fans, began asking one quiet question. What is going on behind the scenes? No answers came. Not from Joni. Not from the team. Not from anyone. And that silence, it made everything worse. People who had donated for years, who had trusted Joni and her family with their prayers, their money, their faith, they started to feel like strangers. Some started digging. Looking for clues. Anything that would explain what just happened. And what they found only made it worse. Old rumors started coming back. Stories that had been whispered in church halls, in private prayer circles, in quiet online groups, now they were rising like smoke. Some said this moment had been coming for years. That behind Joni's smile was a woman under pressure, trying to keep the public image polished, while the private truth was falling apart. And that moment on live TV? It wasn't a mistake. It was a crack. A crack in a wall that was already full of fractures. Viewers noticed how quickly Daystar's social media posts began changing after that broadcast. Less personal. More controlled. Almost like someone else had taken over the voice of the network. Some posts disappeared entirely. Others were edited without warning. And then, the comments started vanishing too. People were being blocked. Questions were left unanswered. It didn't feel like the network people knew anymore. It felt like a machine trying to protect itself. And right in the middle of it all, was Joni. The woman who once preached about faith over fear now looked like she was running from something. Or hiding something. But what? People who worked behind the scenes, former staff, ex-volunteers, even a few guest speakers, started reaching out anonymously. They didn't want fame. They didn't want money. They just wanted to be heard. They talked about tension inside the building. Whispers of money being spent on things that didn't seem right. Trips. Clothes. Events. Some said they raised concerns and were told to stay quiet. Others said they were let go after asking too many questions. And all of it led back to the same face. Joni Lamb. For years she had been the image of calm and wisdom. But now those same eyes looked tired. Not from age. But from the weight of something she could no longer carry. And if the rumors were even half true, the broadcast wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. The question started spreading fast. If Joni Lamb really was hiding something, what was it? People went back and rewatched that live broadcast over and over again, looking for clues, watching her face, her hands, her tone. Every second was picked apart. And then, someone noticed something strange. A moment just a few seconds long where Joni glanced off camera, like she was looking at someone, or waiting for a signal. She paused just for a beat and then her voice shifted. What she said after that moment. That was the part that changed everything. It wasn't just what she revealed. It was how she said it. Tired. Almost like someone who had carried something heavy for too long, and finally dropped it. Some people say she was being honest. That she was finally done pretending. Others say she was trying to control the narrative, before someone else did it for her. And then, more stories started coming out. From people close to the family. From people who had worked with Marcus Lamb before he died. From people who had seen the cracks long before the public ever noticed. One person said, Daystar hasn't been the same since Marcus passed. There's been confusion, conflict, and money disappearing into places we don't understand. Another said, Joni's not who she used to be. She's surrounded herself with people who only tell her what she wants to hear. But the biggest shock? Some of those people speaking out weren't strangers. They were friends. Longtime friends of the Lamb family. People who had defended Joni for years, now saying something didn't feel right anymore. And that's when things got serious. Lawyers started getting involved. People were warned not to speak to the press. Contracts and NDAs were quietly reinforced. But it was too late. The story was out. And people weren't just curious anymore. They were angry. Angry at the silence. Angry at the manipulation. Angry that someone they trusted might have been playing a role all along. Even church leaders began pulling away. Some of them had built entire ministries through Daystar. They had preached on her platform, stood on her stage. But now they were distancing themselves without saying why. One after another they stepped back. And the audience noticed. The silence from those pastors said everything. People online started calling it the Great Pullback. Others just called it the fallout. But whatever you named it, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a bad moment. This was a turning point. Joni Lamb had spent decades building a platform based on truth, family, and faith. And now, all three of those things were under fire. But what really happened? Why did she speak out that day? Was it a confession? A distraction? Or a warning? The answers weren't clear yet. After the broadcast, something strange started happening behind the scenes. Joni stopped showing up to certain events. Quietly. No explanation. Just absent. Some of the most loyal Daystar viewers noticed immediately. The studio lights were on. The hosts were smiling. But something felt off. And then, out of nowhere, Rachel Lamb Brown started stepping in. At first, it seemed normal, just helping out. Filling space. Keeping things moving while Joni took time. But quickly it became more than that. Rachel wasn't just helping. She was taking over. Running segments. Making major calls. Reaching out to pastors. And not just any pastors, big names. Influencers. The type of guests Daystar needed to stay alive. People began whispering, was this part of the plan? Had Rachel been waiting for this moment? Some insiders say the transition was already in motion, months before Marcus Lamb passed away. Others say it happened suddenly, right after the bombshell moment on TV. That Joni pulled back because she had no choice. Because things were about to get worse. Behind closed doors, board meetings got heated. People started asking questions about finances, where the money was going and why certain projects were failing quietly. There were rumors of arguments between the Lamb family and long-trusted staff members. And some of those staff? They just disappeared. No farewell. No thank you. No explanation. Just gone. It was like the walls of Daystar were starting to shake from the inside out. But through it all, Joni remained mostly silent. She posted pictures. Smiled in public. Shared Bible verses. But said nothing about what really happened. Until one more interview changed everything. She sat down on a different program, off Daystar. A small Christian podcast, not many viewers. People thought she'd play it safe. But halfway through the interview she dropped something no one expected. She said, there were people around Marcus who weren't looking out for him. And I didn't see it until it was too late. Just like that, it was out there. Blame. Regret. And a hint, just a hint, that maybe Marcus's downfall wasn't as spiritual as people thought. That maybe someone was working behind the curtain. And if that's true, then the story Joni told for the last 2 years might not be the full truth. Fans were stunned. Some defended her. Some turned on her. But no one could deny, this wasn't just grief anymore. This was a storm she couldn't control. And deep inside that storm, was a truth still hiding in the shadows. Because the biggest question of all remained. Who was Joni really protecting? Herself? Marcus? Or someone else entirely? What happened next was something no one predicted. An anonymous letter, yes, an actual printed letter, was sent to multiple Christian news outlets. No name. No address. Just one sentence at the top. You don't know the real reason Marcus died. Attached was a list of names. People who had once worked at Daystar. People who had left quietly, or been pushed out. Each name came with a story, some heartbreaking, some disturbing. Stories of pressure, secrets, and in a few cases, threats. One former employee said they were told not to speak to the press, ever. Another said they witnessed something the night Marcus died that still haunts them. And a third simply said, I left because I feared for my soul. No one could prove if the letter was real. But the damage had already been done. The public started asking deeper questions. Not just about Marcus's death, but about the network itself. What really happened in those final months before he got sick? Why was the funeral so fast? Why did Joni go silent, then suddenly explode on live TV? Why did Rachel take over like she was waiting in the wings? And what was really going on with the powerful pastors who walked away quietly, Greg Laurie, Jack Hibbs, even others who never spoke publicly? Joni never responded to the letter. She never mentioned the podcast again. And yet, something in her eyes changed. She stopped smiling the same way. She avoided interviews. And Daystar, once a blazing fire, began to slowly dim. The shows weren't the same. The energy was gone. The trust was broken. Today people still debate what really happened. Was it grief? Was it betrayal? Or was it something far deeper, something darker, that forced Joni to speak out that day? One thing is certain. The moment Joni opened her mouth on live TV, everything changed. Not just for her, but for the millions who watched, trusted, and believed. And now, they're left with a haunting question. If this is what she said in public, what else is still being kept in the dark? The story isn't over. It's just the part they never wanted you to hear.